Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the IAC Art Talks. I'm Professor Jing Han, the Director of the Institute for Australian and Chinese Arts and Culture at Western Sydney University. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the land of the Darug Nation of the Darug people, who have been the traditional owners of the land for thousands of years, and pay our respect to the First Nations elders, past, present, and emerging. Today, we are very excited to have Dr. Tianli Zu back to IAC. Last year, we held a solo exhibition of her amazing paper cuts, and the show was a great success, visited by so many mesmerized students and staff on campus. So we are very pleased to have the honor of having Dr. Tianli Zu to give us this long-awaited talk in our Art Talk series with the title Storytelling Chinese Migrants Through Papercuts. Dr. Tianli Zu is a renowned Chinese-Australian multimedia artist. She had a BA from the Central Academy of Fine Arts China and Master of Fine Arts and PhD from Sydney College of the Arts, University of Sydney. Tianli has held many exhibitions, including at the Art Gallery of New South Wales, the Powerhouse Museum, National Library of Australia, Adelaide Festival Centre, and in Paris. She has been commissioned by many institutions, including University of Sydney, the Powerhouse Museum, Walt Disney, Maritime Union of Australia, City of Sydney, Sydney Aquarium, Vivid Sydney, Hazelhurst Regional Gallery, Hawkesbury Regional Gallery, Gallery Lane Cove, and Mossman Art Gallery. She has also been a finalist in numerous national art prizes, including the Archibald Prize twice. Her art has been collected worldwide. Dr. Tianli Zu has a diverse practice comprising paper cuts, sculpture, painting, animation, and installation. She creates large-scale paper cuts by hand and combines them with installation and animation to provide viewers with unique experiences of a time and a space. Her current exhibition is being held now at Shoalhaven Regional Gallery, and I went to attend the opening. It just looks amazing, and it was absolutely worth my 2.5-hour drive. Today, she will talk about her artistic residency, research, and the outcome that is shown in the current exhibition. At the end of her talk, we will take questions from the audience, and you can post your questions at the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and I will collect them for Tianli to respond. Now, please welcome Dr. Tianli Zu to give us her presentation.
On 17 May 1852, Alexander Berry purchased 8 Chinese laborers to work on his Shoalhaven properties. How did they transform into immortals? What is the story of the 8 immortals in the gum tree forest? Chinaman Beach, Gangsan Tunnel. What are the stories of these places that have Chinese names? Thank you, Professor Han, for inviting me to deliver this art talk. Over the next 45 minutes, I will virtually guide you through my exhibition, Blurring Boundaries, currently showing at the Shoalhaven Regional Gallery, to explore and discover the untold stories. By the end of this art talk, you will have gained experience and some stories to share with your friends. Thank you, everyone, for taking time to be with me. Now I'm sharing my screen. Blurring boundaries include site-specific installation, paper cut by hand, wall drawings, animation, and light projection. It is about exploring early Chinese migrant stories from a migrant Chinese viewpoint. When I first came to Australia in 1988, my artistic development did not find acceptance. I was advised to be assimilated as a remedy. After receiving academic training in Western fine arts in CAFA in Beijing, China, I came to Australia to further explore my creativity and pushing boundaries. Regardless of the method and medium I employ, it must be authentic, as it is the only way I can express my emotions that the words cannot convey. For 35 years, especially after obtaining my Doctor of Philosophy in Contemporary Art from the University of Sydney in 2014, I have continued to utilize art to explore the interplay of yin and yang, light and shadow in different ways. I expanded Chinese folk art, paper cutting, to tell stories that convey philosophical ideas in the contemporary art context. I found threads of continuality in response to the ocean and bushland near where I live now, and reflected them to the ancient Chinese myth, poetry, and my childhood memories and my hybrid experiences. Blurring boundaries, dialogues, heritage and culture, East and West, life and death, present and absence, reality and imagination. My art reflects my life, upbringing, worldview, change the environment and present, and it is deeply intertwined with my personal experiences. It is the interdependent relationship between my work and my life, which I extend to the public, inviting everyone to participate. Blurring boundaries is also a dialogue of place, identity, and otherness. It deals with trauma, crime, tension, pain, taboo, irony, and also spirituality and healing. It aims to obtain clarity in responding complex identities without prejudice, stereotypes, or discrimination. In February 2023, I had the opportunity to spend 2 weeks at the Bundanon Artists in Residence Press program, exploring the hidden stories and the narratives connecting Chinese Australians in the Shoalhaven with the natural environment of the region. However, the more I tried to clarify the truth of the past, the blurrer the past became. I came to realize that stories have a way of persisting over time, some adapting and evolving, while others are recontextualized and translated. Story can create an illusion of defining time. The inspiration of blue gum, as you can see from the screen, come from experience and memory. When I stayed at the Bundanon homestead, I was surrounded by eucalyptus forest. As I looked at the trees, I couldn't help but think of a special blue dye dyeing fabric technique in southern China, where technique has resonated with the Shoalhaven Chinese migrants where they come from. I also observed ivies growing onto the tree trunks. The ivies symbolize the Chinese migrants who had no roots but had to lean on trees to survive. In my view, nature and people are ultimately inseparable. Chinese migrants who came to Shoalhaven region are fundamentally connected to the gum trees, the Shoalhaven River, and the wildlife in the area. The fragility of human being is addressed through the use of paper as a metaphor, while nature's impermanence is also emphasized in the blue gum. This methodology goes beyond the cultural context. Living organisms are supple and adaptable, whereas death is rigid and unchanging. I aimed to create an installation that is gentle and welcoming, inviting viewers to immerse themselves in the experience using all their senses. To start with my Bundanon residence, First Nation cultural heritage consultant Clive Freeman gave me a live experience of a welcome to country. It began with a morning coffee where Clive introduced me to some people. He explained that greeting people every morning is a way of welcoming them to their country. Drove and crossed the endless coastlines. As he stepped out of his four-wheel drive, he proudly declared, "This is our country." Before visiting his mother, Auntie Julie, a renowned Aboriginal waver, artist, and storyteller, Clive took me to Bundanon National Park to pick up grasses for her to wave. Clive also explained that the flowers growing in Bundanon National Park are mainly used for funerals. His story resonated with my research about Shoalhaven Chinese migrants who made a significant contribution to local cemeteries. Drawing the burial is an installation that signifies paying respects to ancestors. It was inspired by my experience of seeing my grandparents' tomb in a massive graveyard. On the top of a small hill, there were 3 bricks representing my grandfather and 2 grandmothers. This hill symbolizes a monument following the ancient Chinese custom of burying married couples together for their afterlife. According to Chinese tradition, there's no difference between yin and yang. Life and death are one. The color I painted for the gallery was inspired by the sunrise I saw on the Shoalhaven River. Peach pink symbolizes rebirth, nurturing, and warmth. Feeding baby Joey depicts a mother kangaroo feeding her baby Joey. It is an impression in Chinese tradition of extending life and continuing the family line. When I was researching, I discovered that on 17 May 1852, Alexander Berry purchased 8 Chinese laborers for various prices, between new to £13 each. I intuitively linked them to an ancient Chinese folklore, the 8 immortals crossing the sea. The tale is one of the most widely circulated myths and legends around Chinese people. According to the myth, the 8 immortals rely on their special abilities to perform miracles and reach their destination. Barry sent them to his brother to work on his Shoalhaven properties. He said the Chinese laborers must be well used, not bullied. The historical facts showed September 1900s, John Tao married second time to Nellie Grange. They had 13 children. In New Tale, the 8 immortals crossing the sea, taking inspiration from this ancient folklore, I created stories about the 8 laborers crossing the sea to the Shoalhaven area. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This immortal is holding a triple claw rake on one hand and a large celery in the other. A phoenix sits on his shoulder. He appears to be standing on the ground, but also gliding through the air. Fact: 1898, Shoalhaven Agriculture Show. Charlie Ahoy, first prize, parsnip, parsley, celery. Based on historical records, Gangsan William, was born in Guangzhou, China. He arrived in Shoalhaven in 1854. I created this immortal in motion, diving into the sea. His body bears the patterns of plants, with a lotus flower included as part of his portrait. In my view, it is not just who they are. Rather, it is through their interwoven threads I have chosen the narratives to explore. My narratives aims to disclose the struggles, chaos, and crime faced by the Chinese migrants, while simultaneously exploring their spiritual journey. For example, I copied a newspaper clip on his sleeve. It says, "Caution, I, the undersigned, do caution the public not to harbor my wife on any consideration, as she is constantly leaving her home, neglecting her household duties, and also the care of her children." Jiangsu's number 29th January 1875. During the mid to late 1880s, there are several reported cases of Chinese criminal activity, which included domestic violence, rape, and theft. I also portrayed their ability to transform bodies into souls, bringing a sense of hope and enlightenment to their journey. The historical record showed April 1900s, heathen Chinese hawking, penalty, £1. 1957, Leon's restaurant, today still standing, Leon's Chinese restaurant, North Street, Nara. I made this individual at a large scale as if to elevate them to icon status. Facts. 20th April 1853. Suan, milkman, wages, 18 pounds per year, weekly rations, 10 pounds beef, 10 pounds flour, 2 pounds sugar, and a quarter-pound tea. The tools they are holding give them magical powers and the metaphorical motifs, items such as plum blossom, gourd, coins, a magic flute, peaches, lotus flowers, fish, and the rooster symbolize good fortune, wealth, good health, longevity, and family harmony. In a land full of opportunities, the hard-working Chinese people were often troubled by loneliness. Based on true story, a prostitute used to live in number 10, and a Chinese man hung himself due to homesickness and loneliness. In the paper cut number 10, which comment on a taboo topic, I can carved number 10 on the wall and a hanging rope on the beam. Outside the half dwelling, there was a magnolia tree imported from China in full bloom. Chinese people were treated poorly as they were considered an inferior race. To create a purely white society in the Shoalhaven, colonists excluded, expelled, and even massacred Chinese migrants. I wanted to retell the story that Jack Robinson, who in 1881 was said had kicked and beaten Long Yong till he bled. This incident was not just a historical event, but it has a lasting impact. In the wrestling, two male kangaroos are in a fight. The left one, standing on his tail, kicks the opponent with both legs. The male kangaroo on the right bears a plum blossom, revealing his Chinese identity. This ironic horror scene announces that although Chinese people would not initiate a fight, their innate characteristic is to enter a fight to defend themselves and protect their families. In addition to my other paper cuts where the cutout is excluded from a single piece of paper, some works in this exhibition used layers of thin paper and fabric painted with Chinese ink and blue before cutting. This method aims to reveal the tragic and scattered life of Chinese migrants, the brute, violent, primitive-like cuts represent the ills of the past, but they also symbolize the potential of the future as the artwork is still completed as one piece. Moreover, I wanted to manifest the Chinese belief that the happiness is a fulfillment within. In the Shoalhaven region, near the Green Point, there is a 2.4-kilometer long beach on the north coast of the Beecroft Peninsula called Chinaman's Beach. According to the local historians, a group of Chinese people set up a fish drying business in the area. The name may have been given for this reason. However, there's no signs of Chinese presence there today, and the beach is just one of many white sand beaches in the area. In Chinaman's Beach, I caught 6 fish and handcuffed. They hung upside down, suspended in space, their teeth, bones, and baby fish in their tummies exposed. I did this out of a desire to explore the brutal and possibility violent past events that led to the disappearance of the Chinese people from the area. I want to question the reasons behind their absence and what may have happened to them. Argyle, born in 1834 near Hong Kong, arrived in Australia in 1855. He leased land from the Berry Estate for more than 20 years on Cumberland Island Road in Namba. In 1879, Argyle was neutralized, and his occupation was a dealer and a gardener. His garden was known as the Namba Market Gardens. However, he had many misfortunes, such as his fruit and vegetables were stolen. When I visited the site, a piece of writing on the wall drew my attention. In the remaining Chinese text, it is described that Argyle offered his nephew a place to live for 10 years, but the nephew was ruthless and wanted to take over his uncle's house. He owed his uncle a lot of money. Then a piece of wall was suspiciously removed, possibly indicating the amount of the nephew's debts. In the wall drawing, 655 Cameron Island Road, I sketched the cottage, and that is still standing partially, and copied the Chinese text from the wall. It vividly discloses that while Chinese migrants try to adapt to the new environment, they confront harsh relationship within the family, both in the past and present time. One resolution to solve family disputes is to become wealthy. For instance, in Guangdong and Hong Kong, people say 恭喜发财, 祝你 get rich as a direct translation, as Chinese New Year greetings. While walking around the vegetable gardens, I noticed there was cow manure all over the place. Cow manure, 牛粪, is homophonic for working hard to get rich. It is a good fortune motif according to Chinese tradition. As a result, I decided to create an entire wall drawing of the manure. The night before the exhibition opened, I had a conversation session with Sophie O'Brien, head of curatorial and learning at Bundanon. Sophie shed new lights on these motifs. She sees the images of cow manure as environmentally friendly elements, providing nutrients for growing plants and improving soil. The act of drawing with chalk on walls created a dance between my hand, body, movement, and the thinking process. The erasing, the smudging, abandoning, and changing are all improvisations of my emotions at that moment. I have no expectations or fears of mistake, but rather a desire to indulge in the moment of process and embrace impermanence. At the end of the exhibition, the drawing will disappear altogether. The drawing resonates with my spontaneity and emergence, and it is slightly chaotic in exclusion. In my over 40 years of art making, I've never wanted to have full control. And often the making is simply a need to get lost, to be free. I completed the drawing on the wall on the day before my exhibition opened. During my residency at Bundanon Homestead, aside from conducting research and interviews, I spent time observing the new environment and reflecting on what I saw. Every day, I saw herds of cattle peacefully grazing in the field. I learned that almost all cattle are born with the ability to grow horns, even cows. However, farmers often remove the horns on their cows to prevent any fights or accidents. In cattle and cows, the cows are ready to be milked, and all the cows still have their horns. I identified an analogy. If the calves were my children, and I was their mother, I would want to protect them, but I wouldn't want to take away their strength. Would the society remove their horns? This is ambiguous, whether their horns will be kept or removed. John Tao, the son of Ah Tao, was born in Melbourne in 1857. Around 1882, Tao purchased the property at Tarara for £15. The external cottage still retains its original structure, and it has been designated as a heritage building. It is a timber cottage with a handmade brick chimney. John Tao had 13 children with his second wife. One of his daughters was a dwarf. He was bullied at school. However, he made an Aboriginal friend. They often went to the market together. Unfortunately, one of Tao's daughters denied to be Chinese and distanced herself from the family. While their lives were seemingly not so perfect, I wanted to include the cow knocked down Tao's kitchen wall in this exhibition because the lightheartedness and the humor of this story will bring a smile to viewers' faces. I believe that life isn't meant to be taken seriously as long as you're sincere. In 1852, Gangsan arrived in New South Wales by ship. She was naturalized at the age of 59 in 1883. According to Gangsan's granddaughter, her grandfather discovered a shortcut to catch fish in the ocean. He went through a cave, and at the exit, he fixed a rope for him to climb down the cliff to get closer to the water. Gangsan shared his discovery with his friends, and as a result, they named the secret place Gangsan's Tunnel. Have imagined that Gangsan spending his happy time after a hard-working day. I titled this work, Gangsan's Fishing Paradise. This is the detail. As I traced back Gangsan's path, I had to crouch down to move forward through the cave. The walls of the cave were made up of layers of rocks. There was a big crack on the ground, which seems dangerous to me, and one could easily put a foot into it and get stuck. However, when I reached to the end of the tunnel, the view of the ocean was breathtaking. Gangsan's tunnel serves as a metaphor for life. After all the struggles, challenges, and darkness, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I was blessed to have had this experience, as if the view could only be evoked by poetic music. The acoustic of the tunnel made me feel warm and opened up all my senses. I felt like I have been given a glimpse of a shadowless world. At the back wall of the gallery, the audience is presented with a 30-minute video called Once Upon a Time. I created this animation film from my paper cuts. It waves through history to present time. The music, A Conversation with Shadow, is composed by second-generation Chinese Australian and our son, Andrew Zhou. It comprises field recordings and an original score, orchestrating a panoramic soundscape of Australian bushland. I selected to use this work from Andrew's composition collection because I believe it added the spirit to the stories. I created two special works for this exhibition. One of them is She's Dragon, made of 100% cotton paper with a hand cut and stitched on canvas. 2024 celebrates the Year of Dragon. According to the legend, Chinese consider Yan and Huang emperors as their ancestors, and their symbolism was the dragon. Because of this, Chinese people sometimes referring themselves as descendants of the dragon. The second work, Five Poisonous Insects and Gourd, is a humble creation intended to bring good feng shui and protection to the exhibition space. I painted the eucalyptus tree bark on the canvas first, and then sewed the paper cuts onto the canvas with using thread. For me, the painting technique and the choice of the material are crucial to my practice. They bear metaphorical meanings that are deeply embedded in the work. This artwork symbolizes how, as a migrant, we adapt to the new environment while trying to maintain our identity. It represents the interdependence of the yin and yang, as well as the independence. The five poisonous insects refers to scorpions, snakes, geckos, centipedes, and toads. In ancient times, these animals were believed to be highly poisonous and symbols of disease and evil. Paper cut them, according to Chinese custom and tradition, is a way to repel disease and evil and to pray for health and peace. The gourd, hulu, is homophonic as fulu and has long been the symbol of fortune and luck. This symbol is deeply cherished by people. Its shape implies harmony, happiness, great fortune, and a happy life. Blurring Boundaries is a thought-provoking and experimental exhibition that has taken me on a profound journey of self-discovery. Throughout the creative process, I have engaged in dialogue, research, reflection, and conceptualization, allowing me to cultivate in a deeper understanding of history, society, nature, and my inner self. As a migrant who have lived in Australia for over 35 years, I have had to navigate and adapt to an unfamiliar environment, complex life, and hybrid identities. Through my art, I'm reflecting the disruptive yin-yang world that we live in, where accepting things as they are can bring beauty, and there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. Despite wanting to cut off from the past due to its difficulties and complexities, this project has allowed me to become more connected to my roots and history, while simultaneously embracing new experiences and perspectives. I encountered numerous challenges during the development of this project. However, they only strengthened me of my determination to expose and reveal the untold stories. A heartfelt thank you for all of you to help me to arrive today. Without you, the stories couldn't be discovered and shared. Thank you.
Wow, Tianli, this is amazing. It's really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed every single minute and every single second. Like this presentation itself is like a form of art. It's very much like a performing art. It's really beautiful. And also we can see you as such a fine and refined artist, very precise, like it's really reflected the way you do your art. It's the precision. It just is incredible. Every single little detail is there. So thank you so much. It's so enjoyable.
I'm
It's
very
amazing.
privileged.
It's really amazing. I come, like I was there and I'm watching the show, and now I listen to you, I get more. And also, as you said, this is a really also journey of a self-discovery, in which I can relate a lot to what you were saying, because we really came around the same time, 1988. So now we are open to questions, but before you post your questions, feel free. Now you can post your questions. I have a few questions. As I mentioned, and it's really your story and the stories of many other people, not only about our being migrants, but also, migrants before us. And really like your artistic image of ivies as a Chinese, like they are so beautiful, but they don't have a roots, so they have to cling onto trees to grow and to thrive. And so such a good image and analogy. And you also mentioned that at the very beginning, and being migrated into a country that we don't know so very well, and you feel like obliged to be assimilated, so for all sorts of reasons. And it seems like it's taken you these many years, and now it's 35 years, to come back to look at your, to not even look, to you being always looking, but to present your roots and your identity. Do you think, so my question is, has it taken this long to get to this part of the journey?
I think I'm just slow. Some people might be quick. I'm just slow. I actually I must to say I learn as I progress, and also I learn a lot more from our children. And I think that art takes time. And it's a lifelong. I'm still exploring. I'm still learning. It takes as long as it takes to get to. I'm arriving today, and I've still a lot more. I realize I still got a lot more to explore.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm quite touched by your genuine sharing of your, the emotions along the way, the feelings, the thoughts and reflections. It's interesting that you're doing paper cuts, using paper cuts, especially for this exhibition, looking at Chinese Australians' early history. Paper cuts is traditional Chinese art form, and now you're bringing it to present the lives of those 8 immortals who lived there many, many years ago. Do you feel like you are using the traditional art form to bring them home in a way?
Possibly that's a good way to put it. I think that's probably a fulfillment for me. I actually using I wasn't intentionally using a Chinese form. It's a natural outpouring experience, I think, a process. To me, it's very natural. As I trained in the Western way, and being in this country far away from my birthplace, I found that this language, and especially thinking in the 1980s, I was paper cutting with Shanxi peasants. Shanxi, where, as we all know, is the near the Yellow River, where the Chinese culture originated. I think that gives me that kind of comfort and the assurance that this is the language that I can share, and it's a never runs out resources. So, and of course, by the Western way of I know where to cut, as that's how I develop. I never sketch. I basically just use knife and scissors. I cut wherever my mind goes. So the Western training was wonderful, as you know where it goes. But the aesthetics and the stories or the philosophy behind it is coming from basically my childhood and my upbringing. So if I say bring them home, maybe as the way you saying it, and also I can add on to it, I feel like I'm coming back home.
Yeah. And I'm sure if they were still there, I'm sure their spirits, they would be so happy, to be brought back in this very traditional art form and paper cuts, 8 of them. And when you were doing that, very interestingly, I noticed that some of the cruelty and, discrimination, harshness of life, and homesickness, all sorts, incredible hardship and suicide, so all these violent bits and cruelty. I noticed that you present them still in a very beautiful form, and you being very discreet, even, like a subtle way of not like these days there are many, especially drama. They're so graphic and so raw. It's just sometimes it's really hard to take on. So is that because you were influenced by Chinese way of thinking, Chinese philosophy, or Chinese aesthetic, the subtlety, the discretion, so even presenting violence?
That's probably right. You're probably right. As you know, I'm been doing all this interplay between the yin and yang as I'm revealing them, exposing them, but I also concealing some part. And also we know as we grow up, you'll never hear your parents or grandparents talking about the hard life because they want to have the happiness. They want to have the whole world to be happy. So in a way, I'm already revealing some. So that's actually not blurring boundaries, but pushing the boundaries to make people to think, to realize what it is. But when I was paper cutting with the Shanxi peasants, their life was so hard. And when they cutting with me, they would say, don't just cut outline. You know, the Western people doing silhouettes, they do paper cuts, they in a different form. And they will say, put some flowers on it. It look happier. So and that's related to how I don't think I'm intentionally hiding anything. I think it is upbringing belief, or as my grandmother, when I was 6 years old, my grandmother gave me a piece of paper and the scissors and told me, anything you can't have, you can cut it. So this kind of like many times when you look at my work, it's really calm, rather beautiful, and the true self is the opposite. It could be really chaotic. It's opposite one, but I want to present to everybody the things may not be able to happen in the real life, but in the form of art, we can have it.
Beautiful. I know we are running out of time, so I don't see any questions. So I'll ask my last question, quick question. And again, I noticed something quite interesting, humor. When people talking about Chinese, especially early Chinese migrants, you know, so they are miners, so they are gardeners. So seldom people talking about their sense of humor. So was it deliberate that you put that sense of humor in this art exhibition?
Yeah, that's right. I think the humorous, it's in a way probably just subtle, and the way maybe we interpret or interpreting the humor is a slightly different way than the Western people. You have to understand the culture, I think, to understand, especially the language itself. There are words in there. They were so subtle. But if you know it, and that's become a humor, and the kind you can shuck off the thing. So there are a few things. For example, the fish, they already exposed their body, their skeletons, and I made them cut. Their mouth is open. You can feel like operatic singing in there. So there is a violence, there is cruelty, and often, I mean, even when I was doing interviews, people always say, you always have a chuckle when you're talking about hardship. I know what else can I say? You know, so this kind of gesture, it's very Chinese-ness, I think.
It is. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Tianli. I really, along with everyone else, enjoyed it thoroughly, and it's great to presentation talk and to the art. And I know you for a long time, but from this, and I learned more about your art, about yourself, and about this journey. It's just really wonderful. And thank you so much for your time and effort and talent in preparing this great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, audience. And we will send out the video recording. So we recorded, and then we'll send out the recording link, and so everyone can share with each other. And thank you so much. And we look forward to see everyone again in our next talk. Have a good evening. Thank you. Bye, Tianli.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Professor Han.